I come from a mountain village, and the most beautiful woman in our village was insane. Her husband had been a hero. He was the first to spot a landslide coming and shouted for everyone to run. But he didn't make it himself. He stayed behind to save an elderly man with bad legs and got swallowed by the mud and rocks. She went mad after that. She could never forget the day it poured rain. Every day since, she would carry an umbrella and go wait where her husband had died, hoping to bring him home. Day after day. Year after year. At first, people felt sorry for her. She had nothing to eat or drink, so folks would bring her soup or rice to help her get by. She'd always smile and thank them like a child. But scumbags exist everywhere. A few old bachelors in the village noticed how beautiful she was with all the right curves and would bring her food, asking if she wanted a pancake. If she said yes, they'd ask to hold her. She didn't understand much and gave in, just for the food. But no matter what she ate, she always saved half, tucking it away like it was something precious. When others asked why, she'd say it was for her husband, in case he came back hungry. Our village is conservative. Once rumors spread, the women stopped helping her. They said she had no shame. Not only did they stop bringing her food, they also forbade their husbands from going near her, afraid she'd seduce them. So, she was left hungry most days. That gave the old bachelors more chances to take advantage. What started as a hug turned into requests for kisses or touches. But every time they tried, she'd giggle and gently push them away, saying she couldn't, she had a husband. Because she wouldn't let them go further, the old men eventually lost interest. Still, she became the village's walking scandal. People called her a whore. But I always thought it wasn't her fault. What did she do wrong? She just wanted to eat. She just wanted her husband to come home. Whenever the village gossips started whispering behind her back, I'd wonder did anyone even remember her husband was a hero. I felt sorry for her and would often bring her food. I was a day student, so my parents gave me lunch money every day. I'd eat a bit less and use the rest to buy her some buns or rice. Over time, maybe because I was the only one who didn't ask for anything in return, she warmed up to me. We got along really well. Sometimes, when it rained, she would walk all the way from the village to the town to pick me up from high school. She knew we were day students and didn't want me getting soaked. But then rumors started. My classmates began saying I had something going on with the crazy woman. Kids can be cruel. Whenever she came to get me, they'd point and laugh, shouting, "Your wife's here to pick you up." I was miserable. I told her many times not to come, but she never listened. She came for 3 whole years. Every time, she'd hand me something half-eaten from her coat. Food she was saving for her husband, but now she was saving it for me. I always told her I didn't want it. Some classmates, knowing her habit of saving food for her husband, would tease me even harder. "Look, it's her little husband," they'd laugh. She had no shame. She'd even hold my hand and call me her little hubby. I had only meant to be kind, but I ended up humiliated for 3 years. Then came senior year. A typhoon hit, and school let us go after half a day. As we all rushed out in the wind and rain, she showed up again. Her umbrella was torn. She was soaked through, but still she ran over, grinning like always, handing me her broken umbrella so I wouldn't get wet. My classmates roared with laughter. "Look, your crazy wife's here to pick you up." She laughed too, calling me her little husband. I was furious. The girl I liked was right there, watching. I shoved the woman hard and told her to get lost. I shouted that she was shameless, that she was a disgrace to her husband, who had died a hero. Why didn't she just die too? I didn't mean any of it. I was just angry. But deep down, I felt awful. That was the first time she didn't smile at me. She fell to the ground, staring at me in fear. Then, shaking, she got up and still shoved the broken umbrella into my hand before running away. After she left, I tried explaining everything to the girl I liked, but she wouldn't hear a word. She said she used to like me, but now she thought I was dating a crazy woman. Said it was disgusting. I walked home in the rain, clutching that broken umbrella, crying from all the shame and pain. When I reached the foot of the hill, I saw her standing there in the cold wind, still waiting for me. She was shivering, but when she saw I was drenched, she ran over and hugged me tight, asking if I was cold. Her clothes were soaked and clung to her like a second skin. She really was beautiful, more so than the girl I liked. Thinking about how that girl had just rejected me made my heart burn. I hugged her. At first, she thought I was cold and clumsily tried to open her coat for me to wear. But when I kissed her, everything changed. She cried out in confusion, saying she belonged to her husband. I snarled that I was her husband, wasn't I? Didn't she always call me her little husband? I couldn't hold back the anger anymore. I dragged her into the nearby woods. When she broke down crying like a child, I felt nothing but guilt and fear. After I got home, I couldn't forgive myself for what I'd done. I told myself that next time it rained, if she came again, I'd apologize right away. I even saved up some money, planning to take her out for a good meal. But I never got the chance. The next time it rained, she had an accident. The mountain path was slippery, and she lost her footing, sliding down the hill. By the time they found her, she was dead. I don't know if she was coming to get me or just wandering. I'll never know if she forgave me. When I got home that day and didn't see her, I just figured she'd taken shelter somewhere. Later, when they brought her body back to the village, I saw how bruised and broken she was. I ran home sobbing. I hated myself. I never got to say sorry. Her family was all gone by then. Only then did the villagers remember her husband's sacrifice. They chipped in to bury her, but the money was tight. They bought a plain coffin and planned to bury her next to her husband. No one wanted to carry her coffin. That job usually fell to the younger generation, so they paid a few old bachelors to do it. I volunteered. My mom was furious when she heard. The whole family questioned me why on earth would I do such a thing. I cried as I told them everything. My mother cursed me, called me a disgrace. My dad told me I had to make it right. He made me carry her photo in the procession. In our village, people who die tragic deaths don't get grand funerals. We call it a ghost coffin ceremony. It had to be done quietly, between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. No crying, no noise, just silence. The only sound allowed was from the Swana. That night, every house in the village had its windows and doors tightly shut. I held her photo. Up front, the Swana player scattered paper money. Behind me, 2 men carried the coffin. The Swana didn't play a tune, just a single note every now and then, a warning for any passerby to stay away. Once we left the village and crossed a small creek, we'd reach her husband's grave. The creek was shallow. We locals knew how to cross it easily, only outsiders needed to be careful. But that night, the moon was nowhere to be seen. It was pitch black. I walked as usual, holding the photo, but suddenly missed a step. I stumbled. Thought I could steady myself, but something yanked my ankle hard. I fell. The pain was sharp, but I didn't dare scream. Ghost coffin processions had to be silent. She had suffered enough in life. I wanted her to rest in peace. I fell face first into the stream, swallowing several gulps of water. Then something tugged at my ankle again. I was being dragged through the water. The others panicked. They set the coffin down quietly and rushed over to pull me out. When they finally got me up, I spit out water, and the Swana player shone a flashlight on me. He asked in a low voice if I was okay. I said something had grabbed my ankle. When he shined the light on it, everyone froze. So did I. There was a black handprint around my ankle, twisted and unnatural, like a claw, gripping me tight. The mark was clear as day. The Swona player was a village elder, the one who'd found her body. He saw the mark and turned deadly serious. He told me to leave immediately. Said the dead held a grudge against me, and if I kept going, something bad would happen. My heart broke not from fear, but because even in death, she wouldn't let me carry her photo. She'd never forgive me. She hated me. The elder took her photo from me, and I was sent home. I'm a grown man, but I couldn't stop crying. I was drowning in guilt. My family was shocked when I came back so soon. I told them everything. My parents were terrified. They checked my ankle but didn't know what they were looking at. My dad, worried for my safety, rode out on his tricycle in the middle of the night to find a professional funeral priest. When the man arrived, he asked if we were dealing with a funeral. My parents explained everything. After hearing our story, he asked to see my ankle. When he saw the mark, he said it was a ghost claw print that I'd been marked by a vengeful spirit. My whole family was terrified. We begged him to help, but he refused. He said he only handled auspicious funerals, not this kind of thing. He warned us that this was just the beginning. When the 7th day came, the day her soul was supposed to return, she would come for my life. She hated me and wanted to drag me down with her. This so-called expert was genuinely scared. No matter how much my father offered, he refused to help. That very night, he left without saying goodbye. Before leaving, he told us if I wanted to live, I should run as far away as possible. But even if I escaped now, it wouldn't matter. Sooner or later, she'd find me. And if I stayed, I'd endanger my family too. My mother was furious. At dawn, she stormed to the woman's grave, crying and cursing, saying her son had treated her kindly. He only pushed her once in a moment of anger. Why did she have to push him to death? But cursing did no good. My parents bought all kinds of religious items, statues of Buddha, bodhisattvas, the 3 pure ones, and filled the house with them. They even gave me a necklace and bracelet with Buddha charms. We didn't plan to run. The man had made it clear that fleeing wouldn't help. It would only bring harm to others. We couldn't do that. The days passed in a daze. My mind was full of the memory of pushing her to the ground, yelling at her, the sorrow and terror on her face. I could never forget it. On the 7th night after her death, the night her soul might return, people were afraid she had no home, no family, always lived off the charity of others, so she might go to anyone's house. That night, every household placed a bowl of white rice at the door but kept their doors shut. It was a way of saying, have a meal and move on, please don't come inside. For some reason, the dogs barked nonstop that night. In our isolated mountain village, dogs don't usually bark after dark. There's rarely anyone around. And everyone in the village knows everyone else. Dogs normally don't react like that. But this night, the barking was fierce. Some dogs even ran back to their kennels, whimpering as if begging for mercy. I stood upstairs, looking out the window. Packs of dogs ran through the village like something invisible was chasing them. They ran frantically, sometimes stopping to look back, as if something was watching them. Then they'd run again. No one dared go outside. But I did. Even though my parents had warned me over and over not to open the door, I opened the window and climbed out from the 2nd floor. In the dead of night, I groped my way through the dark to the graves of the madwoman and her husband. I brought the buns and noodles I used to share with her and carefully placed them at her grave. Looking at it, I couldn't help but cry. I sobbed, telling her I was sorry that I was the one who caused her death. If she wanted my life, I wouldn't resist, but I begged her not to harm my parents. I told her that while every other house only offered plain rice, I hoped she could eat something better. I sat by her grave, talking about the past. The more I spoke, the more disgusted I felt with myself. She had been so good to me. Even if she was a little slow, she always came to pick me up in the rain. Every time she walked me home, she'd check my coat buttons over and over to make sure I wasn't cold. No matter how hungry she was, she always saved half her food for me. I was a monster. I cried there until nearly dawn. My parents eventually found me. As soon as they did, my mom panicked. She slapped me hard, then broke down, hugging me, asking why I was being so foolish. I tried to comfort her. I told her not to worry, the 7th night had passed, and I was still fine. Maybe I'd touched the madwoman's heart. Maybe she forgave me. Seeing that I'd made it through unharmed, my parents took me home. But when we got back, the village seemed unusually crowded. Everyone was gathered at the entrance. Curious, we went over. And what we saw left us stunned. Hanging from the tree at the village gate was a dead man. It was the elder who had played the swona at her funeral. He had hanged himself with his own belt. He was wearing nothing but his underwear. His tongue hung long and swollen. His eyes bulged like they were about to pop. On his arm was a mark exactly like the one on my ankle. The village gate had a security camera, our only one. It was installed because people's dogs, motorbikes, even tricycles had been stolen before. Someone called the police, but before they arrived, a few villagers accessed the footage. Everyone crowded around to watch. I couldn't help going over too. What I saw chilled me to the bone. At midnight, the elder appeared at the gate, but he wasn't walking. It was as if he were being dragged out in his sleep. Several times, he tried to crawl away, but invisible hands kept pulling him back. His belt floated in midair, as if held by someone we couldn't see. He screamed a few times, but the barking dogs drowned it out. He struggled again and again, but finally gave in. The belt lifted him off the ground, and he hung from the tree. At first, he flailed. Then he went still, lifeless, stiff. Everyone was terrified. They said it was a haunting. I couldn't believe it. I was supposed to be the one in danger, but he died instead. My parents were scared out of their minds. Both of us had the same claw mark. The police arrived quickly. They collected the footage and told everyone not to spread rumors while they waited for the autopsy. They scolded the villagers too harshly. Once they learned the madwoman had been buried without notifying authorities, they were furious. They said if a body is found, the first step must be to report it, not bury it. They even dug up her grave and took her body for an autopsy too. We returned home in a daze. As soon as we stepped inside, my mom burst into tears. I knew she was worried about me. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't find the words. My dad told me to go rest. No matter what happened, he said, he would find a way to save me. I went back to my room. Even though I hadn't slept all night, I didn't feel tired. I kept thinking about the madwoman. I couldn't understand why she would kill the elder. Around noon, a guest arrived. It was that same funeral expert. He had said he wouldn't help, but here he was. I didn't know how much my parents had to pay to bring him back. They even slaughtered a chicken to make him a stew. He had me sit next to him and question me thoroughly. He examined the claw mark on my ankle again. Then, he said something strange. Normally, vengeful spirits take lives on the 7th night. But it had passed and I was still alive. By all logic, I should have died with the elder. That was why the expert changed his mind and came to help, because something didn't add up. I asked what I should do now. He told me not to rush. Go rest for now, and we'd talk after sunset. He told me not to panic. If nothing happened on the 7th night, I was probably safe. That gave me a bit of relief. I felt sleepy at last. After lunch, I went to bed and slept until the sun went down. When I woke up, the light had faded. Everything was a hazy blue. Mosquitoes buzzed overhead. The expert came into my room, bringing a lot of tools. He told me that if the madwoman really was a vengeful ghost, her spirit hadn't moved on yet. If I was still in danger, something would happen tonight. He pulled out a bunch of small white candles and had my parents move my bed, clearing the floor. He had me sit on the ground. Then he placed the candles in a circle around me. He selected 3 candles and pricked my finger with a needle, smearing my blood at their base. Then he told me to wait outside. A few minutes later, he called me back in and asked, "Do you know why you should never look back when walking at night?" I shook my head and said I didn't know. He told me that when ghosts harm people, it's usually by blowing out their soul lamps. People fear ghosts a little, but ghosts fear people even more. As long as a person is full of righteous energy, wandering spirits can't come near. And the key to a person's yang energy lies in 3 soul lamps, one above the head and one on each shoulder. That's why you're never supposed to look back at night so ghosts don't get a chance to blow out your lamps. Some spirits, when they want to harm someone, will blow a cold wind at the shoulder. Alone, this wind isn't enough to extinguish a soul lamp. But if a person turns to look, that motion creates a breeze, which combined with the ghost's wind can put out the lamp. He said that's probably what happened to the elder. The ghost blew out his lamps first, which let it get close enough to kill him, but I had doubts. The elder had been dragged out of bed. He was only wearing underwear when he died. How could he have turned his head? How could his lamps have gone out? And there was something else bothering me. When I was carrying the ghost coffin, my lamps weren't extinguished, so why did something grab my ankle out of nowhere? Could it be that this ghost was so powerful it didn't even need to blow out the soul lamps? I asked the expert, but he said he didn't know. This whole thing defied his understanding. But he'd already given me the best solution. I asked what I should do next. He pointed to the candles on the ground and said he'd hidden my 3 soul lamps among them. If the ghost came tonight, it would have to blow out the soul lamps first. My job was simple. Sit in the middle with some matches, and no matter how many candles were blown out, just calmly relight them. I asked him which 3 were my soul lamps, since there were so many. He shook his head and said he couldn't tell me. If I knew, my eyes would naturally be drawn to them, and the ghost would notice. He told me not to panic. A ghost's yin energy isn't that strong. It takes time to extinguish a candle. I wouldn't see all the candles go out at once. Just stay calm. After giving me these instructions, the expert said he was leaving for good. This was my one and only chance to wait for the ghost to tire out, then try to talk it down and settle our grudge. I was grateful he'd done this much. I asked if ghosts feared anything. He handed me a knife and said it came from an old bandit. That knife had killed many people and carried death energy. If I struck the ghost dead center between the eyes, it would be destroyed. But he warned me very seriously I'd only get 1 shot. If I missed and hit any other part, the knife's power would be spent. I wasn't even sure I could bring myself to slash her. After all, I felt like I was the one who killed her. Oh, could I hurt her again? The expert left, and I was alone. My parents followed his advice and had already packed up and gone to stay in town. They were afraid that if the ghost couldn't hurt me, it might go after them instead. My mom's eyes were red from crying. Before she left, she begged me to take care of myself. I sat alone in the room, quietly watching the candles burn. Night fell, and once again the dogs began barking worse than before. Outside, the wind howled. It tossed the red lanterns hanging at doorways. Some villagers, hoping to ward off evil with celebration, had lit the lanterns, hoping joy could counter death. But the wind was too strong. The lanterns kept slamming into the eaves, their lights flickering until they went out. Darkness fell over the road in front of my door. Suddenly, my dog downstairs started whimpering, then darted into its kennel. I heard a creak. The door downstairs had opened. I quickly sat back down among the candles. I didn't know why the door opened. It wasn't the wind. My parents had shut it tight before leaving. The room was so quiet I could hear my own breath and heartbeat. Then I heard slow footsteps on the stairs. The candles around me began to flicker violently. My heart raced as I stared at the doorway. A pale, ghostly head slowly peeked through. The face was ghastly white, the eyes pitch black with no whites, and it silently watched me. My heart nearly stopped. That wasn't the madwoman, it was the elder who had just died. He lingered at the door, then gave a grotesque smile. His shoulders appeared, and he slowly crawled toward me, slithering on all fours in a twisted motion. He stopped just outside the circle of candles. I stared at him, stunned. Why him? Why not her? The elder leaned closer to the candles. His cheeks and neck puffed up like a toad, veins bulging, as if they'd burst. Suddenly, he exhaled a gust of yin wind and snuffed out a large portion of the candles. I forced myself to stay calm, lit a match, and began relighting them. The elder tilted his head and crawled toward me, reaching out with a hand. My heart thundered, but I kept repeating to myself, just keep the soul lamps lit. Just before he touched me, he suddenly pulled his hand back like he'd been pricked. Thank God. The expert had said a ghost needs to extinguish at least 2 soul lamps to harm someone. That meant either he hadn't managed to blow out 2, or I'd relit one in time. Neither of us knew which candles were the real soul lamps. The elder suddenly started laughing a weird, grating sound. His mouth stayed shut, yet the sound came straight from his throat. It made my skin crawl. His cheeks puffed again. I panicked. I hadn't finished relighting the candles. He exhaled another blast of cold wind. Now only a fifth of the candles remained lit. Desperate, I relit them as fast as I could. Again, he reached for me. Again, he pulled back burned. Thank God. At least 2 soul lamps were still among the lit candles. But I knew I couldn't keep this up. I couldn't relight everything in time before he blew again. If he managed a third gust, I'd be dead. In a flash of desperation, I lit only a few candles and started moving them around, some in front of me, some behind, using my body as a shield. This seemed to anger him. His stare grew more vicious, but I refused to back down. The expert had said the more fear you show, the stronger the ghost becomes. I couldn't believe it was the elder trying to kill me. Fear gave way to anger. Once I repositioned the candles, I kept lighting them. He puffed his cheeks again. I snapped. Fuck you. Nobody else tried to hurt me, just you, you bastard. If I die, I'll become a ghost too and kill your whole damn family. To my shock, the elder actually flinched. He seemed deflated. When people get angry, their mind goes blank. I remembered the advice not to be afraid. I grabbed the knife, roared, and charged at him. He scrambled toward the stairs like a lizard. I shouted again, still holding the knife. He looked terrified, but that eerie grin never left his face. I'd made up my mind. If he dared come blow again, I'd slam the blade straight into his brow. If someone wanted me dead, I'd send their soul to hell. I returned to the circle, relit the candles, and every time he approached, I brandished the knife, growling. He didn't dare come near again. Eventually, it seemed he gave up. He backed away and disappeared. I sighed in relief and checked every candle still lit. The clock read 11:30 p.m. The expert had said once I got past midnight, the darkest hour, I'd be safe. I just had to hold out another hour and a half. I thought the elder had given up. But then, I heard footsteps again. I gripped the knife tight. This time, I was ready to fight. But it wasn't the elder. It was his son. His son came in carrying a bucket of water, face pale with fear. I eyed him warily and asked what he was doing. He shivered and said his father had come to him in a dream. He was sorry. Then, out of nowhere, he threw the water at me. Most of the candles went out. He stammered another sorry and bolted. I panicked. I tried to relight the candles, but they were soaked, impossible to light. Suddenly, the window flew open. The elder's head appeared, peering in. Like a lizard, he crawled through. That same awful laugh came from his throat. He slithered up to the few candles that still burned, cheeks puffing up again. I didn't think. I grabbed the knife and sprinted downstairs. There was no time to save the candles, they were drenched. I ran for the front door, but just then, a cold wind slammed it shut. The house was plunged into pitch-black silence. I was gasping for air, barely able to see in the dark. I tried flipping on the light, but it flickered weakly, as if the power could go out at any moment. Gripping the knife tightly in both hands, I looked around nervously. Suddenly, thunder cracked. Lightning lit up the whole room, and I saw the elder crawling down the stairs, lunging straight at me. A deafening boom followed, and the shock nearly made me drop the knife. I didn't dare swing it randomly. I was afraid I'd miss the mark. All I could think about was how much I hated his son. The elder grabbed my throat. He was so strong I couldn't fight back. I felt myself being dragged across the floor. My vision dimmed, breath caught in my chest, stars dancing before my eyes. Just then, the door burst open. A figure slammed into the elder, knocking him off me. I collapsed to the ground, still clutching the knife. When I looked up to see who had saved me, I was stunned it was the madwoman. Her body was still battered and drenched in rain. Just like the elder, her face was pale, eyes solid black with no whites. There were now two vengeful ghosts in my house. They glared at each other, emitting low, eerie growls like wild beasts facing off. Suddenly, the elder lunged, but not at her. He came straight for me. The madwoman leapt to block him. In an instant, the elder seized her shoulder and sank his teeth into her neck. She let out a scream of agony. I panicked. I wasn't blind, I saw it clearly. She had taken the hit for me. Without thinking, I rushed forward, aiming the knife at the elder's brow. But he knew what I was trying to do. Holding onto her, he twisted his body so I couldn't get a clear shot. Desperate, the madwoman shoved him away, but he tore a chunk of flesh from her neck. I watched in shock as her wound healed rapidly, as if nothing had happened, but her body started turning translucent. She grabbed my hand and dragged me out. Her hand was icy cold, without a hint of warmth. We ran into the rain. I had no idea where she was taking me. When I glanced back, the elder was chasing us. I wiped the rain from my face and looked at her again. She hadn't come to hurt me. She came to save me. When we reached the creek, I realized where she was heading her grave. Thunder roared overhead, and the downpour made the night even more terrifying. We stumbled up to her grave, only to find someone else already there. I didn't recognize him at first, but he looked eerily familiar. It was the mad woman's husband. I'd seen his photo on the gravestone. He stood silently, watching the elder close in. To my surprise, the elder froze. Just moments ago, he'd been relentlessly chasing us. Now he didn't dare come any closer. Shivering, I wiped my face. The madwoman suddenly hugged me tight and softly told me not to be afraid. Her embrace was cold, but for some reason, I felt safe. I reached up and gently brushed the rain from her face. She didn't look crazy anymore. She looked at me calmly. The elder paced in frustration. then finally turned and left. The madwoman smiled at me at last, a real smile, not the silly grin she always wore. Her eyes were still black, her body cold, but her warmth reached my heart. She stroked my head and said gently, "Scared, little hubby." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I broke down, crying loudly in her arms. "I'm sorry," I kept repeating. "I'm so sorry." The rain and my tears mixed on my face. She looked a little sad, too, but managed to smile and stuck out her tongue playfully. "Don't cry in front of me," she said. "Ghosts can't rely on the living, or they'll never reincarnate." I wiped my tears and tried to stop crying. Her husband glanced at me once, then quietly returned to his grave. She kept comforting me, saying there was nothing to fear. She told me to visit her for a few more nights, and everything would be fine. She could reincarnate now, but she wanted to stay a few extra days for her little hubby. Just like she said, the elder never came back that night. We sat and talked till past midnight. I was chatting with a ghost, yet I wasn't afraid at all. We talked about everything and nothing. When the hour passed, she stroked my head again and told me to come back tomorrow. Then she returned to her grave. I didn't dare wander, so I stayed beside her tomb. It should have been a scary place, but it felt like the safest in the world. I waited there until sunrise. When my parents and the expert returned, I told them everything. They were shocked. My father even wanted to beat up the elder's son, but the expert stopped him. He said he had his own suspicions, but it wasn't something he could say out loud. He also told us that since the madwoman and her husband's spirits were protecting me, I should continue coming here at midnight. He warned me strictly never ask her how she died. Don't remind the dead that they are dead, or they might become attached to this world and miss their chance to reincarnate. I listened. Every midnight, I came to her grave. My parents, worried I'd suffer in the cold, bought me a small tent. When I set it up, she would crawl out of her grave and hug me gently, brushing my hair, still calling me little hubby. I felt embarrassed and a little afraid because I'd seen her husband's spirit too. We were right under his nose. She noticed my hesitation and told me not to worry. Humans and ghosts belong to different worlds. Her husband wouldn't get jealous. Then she pulled me into the tent and held me like a big sister, telling me to sleep. I asked if she hated me, thinking of how she died. She shook her head and said softly, 3 years ago, I had the best husband in the world, and for the past 3 years, I had you. If it weren't for you, I'd have starved to death. She said, I don't hate you, I'm grateful. In those 3 hazy, broken years, you were the only warmth I had. We'd talk until midnight passed. There was never enough time. A few days later, the autopsy report came back. She hadn't died from a fall. There were traces of the elder's bodily fluids in her, and his DNA was found under her nails. She'd been strangled to death. When I learned the truth, I nearly lost it. On that rainy day, I had hurt her, yet she still came to find me. In the woods, when she cried, I had panicked and run away. I never knew she ran into the elder after that dragged into the forest again. The truth was like a blade in my heart. I could picture her helplessness, her despair, hoping someone would come save her. But it was too late. The elder hadn't discovered her body, he killed her. He played the Swona at her funeral just to cover up his crime. I wept uncontrollably. My parents told me not to blame myself. The one at fault was the elder. My father said, would it really be better if she'd stayed mad and kept searching for her dead husband? At least now, they're together. Still, I felt immense guilt. The expert, upon hearing the truth, said it all made sense. When I was grabbed during the ghost coffin ritual, it had been the madwoman. But she wasn't trying to hurt me. She and her husband had wanted revenge and didn't want me caught in it. Why didn't the elder need his soul lamps extinguished before being killed? Because only the righteous carry protective energy. The elder had none. He was a vile man. I asked why he came for me. The expert said, because he was a wicked man. When such people die, they can't reincarnate unless they find a scapegoat. And the best scapegoat is kin. Someone of the same bloodline. Someone already marked by ghosts. Someone like you. But the elder never expected this. The madwoman and her husband had gotten their revenge. They could have moved on, but chose to stay behind, just to protect me. The expert also said the elder's son would pay a price. His father, now a vengeful spirit, couldn't wait much longer. When his seventh-day rite came, the son, his closest kin, would be the target. Sure enough, on the seventh day, the son was found dead, hanged at the village gate, in the exact same manner as his father. But he didn't become a ghost. He was the scapegoat. He'd bear the burden of his father's sins. The father, meanwhile, could reincarnate. That day, I returned to the grave. The madwoman saw me, but didn't rush to hug me like before. She simply sat beside her husband, smiled, and waved. I didn't disturb them. I just stood there and waved back. Their bodies began to fade. She leaned into her husband's arms. They spoke softly. I couldn't hear what they said, but I could imagine. 3 years of waiting, 3 years of longing. Her man had died, but she never stopped loving him. They must have had so much to say. I let them be. Their forms grew fainter and fainter, until they dissolved into stardust, scattering into the night and lighting the darkness with a gentle glow. They held each other close. The madwoman gave me one last, mischievous smile and waved, beckoning me to come over. I walked to their grave, but they were already gone. It was as if they had never existed. I looked down and saw an old, broken umbrella on the ground. Rain had begun to fall again. I picked up the umbrella and opened it. It couldn't block all the rain, but holding it felt just like being in her arms. Safe. I remembered how, for 3 years, she carried that umbrella every day, hoping to bring it to her dead husband. I remembered how, every time it rained, she'd walk from the village to the town just to pick me up. I looked down at the gravestone and chuckled bitterly. Always calling me little hubby, but in the end, you were someone else's wife. I turned and walked away with the umbrella. There would never again be a woman waiting for me to feed her, but maybe that was for the best.